night you went with the tripod? You did? For free? Yeah.
But when it's not,
you know this is supposed to be one on here too, because I got a tripod. I got my own personal tripod. Mine has a black button inside, and it comes on, it lights this up.
But I built this tripod.
I bought mine in '93 when they came with the light.
Yeah, I had to get that because I was always having to use my phone.
What's the name of it? The light. It's called button.
We actually had the
I'm just gonna get it for my personal use.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Vivian Flowers. I'm State Representative for District 17. And I am going to begin. I'm not sure when Senator Flowers gets here. She would have spoken first, but I'll go ahead and welcome you as one of the hosts of this legislative town hall series. Tonight, we are going to begin the series with a conversation about education. I wanted to just say a couple of things about our purpose. I'm serving in my 8th year and 4th term along with my colleague, Representative Ken Ferguson, who you'll hear from in just a minute. And many of you know that this is not the first town hall series, town hall meeting here and other places across the district. And, but we, this is the first post-COVID town hall meeting that we are able to have, and certainly in light of all of the issues and the transition, that we've heard about from our constituents, coupled with the fact that we normally would do this in order to report out information about what we've been doing, the conversations we've been having regarding our school districts. I want to make 2 very critical points. We wanted to talk about education first because, as I've stated, we've been in several meetings with the state officials, Mr. Key and his team. We have met with superintendents. We have met with the mayor's group. And of course, as I mentioned, we've talked with our constituents. And in many of those conversations, especially in official meetings, there's very little talk about academics. There's very little information being disseminated to the public about where we are with our academics and how our students are doing and how we are ensuring that they are prepared when they leave. So that is the primary focus of what we wanted to do in the beginning conversations. And the other thing that I want to make sure to highlight is that, and this is not the first time that we've engaged students, we wanted to make sure that in a conversation about education, that we engage all of the students. We have 3 school districts right now in our county. We all represent, those hosts that you see, all represent parts of Pine Bluff, which is why we are focusing on the Pine Bluff School District and Watson Chapel School District. And that is why you are going to hear from students from all 3 high schools within those 2 school districts. We are here to report and be accountable and listen, because we don't have all the answers. We have to listen to our constituents. We vote on things during the session. We provide oversight during the interim. But no one person, whether an expert or a teacher, has all of the answers to the things that are affecting our students and to the concerns of parents and other stakeholders in this process. So we again want to welcome you. We want to thank you for coming, and we want to listen to you. And I'd like to ask Representative Ferguson to deliver his remarks, his opening remarks, and then we'll touch on the data that we're providing you, and then begin with our panel discussion. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone. Y'all just give me about 2 minutes. Representative Flowers always goes first because she always does a good job with setting the tone of any conference or any town hall meeting that I'm a part of, and she does a wonderful job. And generally, she doesn't leave very much for me to say after she sits down. But let me say this: everybody see the agenda, the welcome, the information about academic and funding data presentation by Representative Flowers. You see the panel. The last section, audience comments, question and answers, is moderated by my good friend Commander Seals. When I was campaigning for office, a young lady told me, she saw me at her church, and it was about to close her charter school. Me and Vivian spoke before the coordinating board, Arkansas Department of Education. And I went to a meeting at that charter school, and she said, Representative Ferguson, you came to my church, and you told me you was running to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. She said, I still can't vote for you because I'm only about 16, so I can't vote for you. But would you fight for me? Would you help keep the school open for me? So I'm here specifically to listen to what your concerns are, what you have to say. I want to take those concerns back to Little Rock, and whoever we need to talk to, from Secretary Johnny Key or Governor Asa Hutchinson, that's what we'll do. So I hope to hear a lot from the audience as you share your concerns, ask your questions. Thank you for coming.
As I mentioned, this is a series, and so there will be follow-up, not only in Little Rock, as you just heard, but also there will be follow-up in this community. We have invited Secretary Key, and he has assured us that he will participate. In the last conversation, he mentioned that he wanted to wait till all of the local meetings occurred first. And so we are going to respect that and expect that we will be able to have a conversation so that you can hear from Secretary Key, who essentially is the top in this state of Arkansas, and certainly in the case of the Pine Bluff School District, the school board de facto. So as I mentioned, we have had meetings, and we met with Secretary Key and members of his team, and over the years, we've probably met about every year at least, if not a couple of times a year, depending on what was going on. And the first thing we ask for, we always ask for, are the numbers around student performance with regard to testing. And we ask that not because that's the only way to measure student success. We know for sure that that is not the only measure of student success, but it is a measure, and we know that it is a measure that determines what happens to our schools with regard to funding, federal funding, local funding, partnership funding, and certainly with regard to the role of the state in our school districts across the state. So that is what we have shared with you. We just extrapolated from data that we received. And so we want you to take a look at this, take it with you, and it provides information with regard to reading proficiency, enrollment, the free and reduced lunch rate in the schools, the graduation rate, and risk assessment is a State Department number that you can kind of extrapolate from the comparison what that might mean. I can't provide specific expert detailed information or answers to questions you might have, but we'll do our best to answer some of the questions. Clearly, we have a lot of work to do with regard to the proficiency testing that we see in all of the school districts in Pine Bluff, or both. And clearly, there's a whole lot of money being spent to educate our kids. And for me, these numbers are not acceptable. And we can do better as a community. We can do better for our children. Senator Flowers is here, and I'm going to stop and afford her an opportunity when she gets settled to provide some opening remarks or welcome remarks if she can.
Good evening. Glad to be here. Glad to see so many people here that are concerned about our school situation in Jefferson County and Pine Bluff. I'm concerned as well. I've looked at the media posts, the letters from Dr. Watley, and yesterday the letter from the PTO that was published. And I agree with your points about lack of transparency in our system for our education of our kids. Education is important. It's important to the future of the children. Not only education, but health care and public safety. And all these are issues that we have within our community now that need some resolution. I think we need better leadership, and I look forward to the discussion, the questions, and the comments that will be offered today. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kamara Seals, and I will be serving as your moderator on this evening. I am the Policy Director at the Arkansas Public Policy Panel. Before I introduce our panelists, I do want to acknowledge, I see my Chancellor in the room, Chancellor Alexander. Thank you for being here. I see our Mayor in the room, Mayor Washington. Thank you for being here, and thank both of you for your leadership. Okay, now the first part of this is going to go this way. We have panelists. You have the agenda. Each panelist has been given 2 to 3 minutes for opening statement, okay? I won't get up and down between each panelist. We're going to go in the order that's on the program, and then when the last panelist, because what they're doing is introducing themselves and telling you, why they're here and what their concerns are, okay? So we're going to start with Denham Banks, who is a 12th grade student at Watson Chapel. Then we will go to Kadari Bush, who's a 12th grade student at Pineville High. Tremel Howe, who's president of the Parent-Teacher Organization, Pineville School District. Liz McCone, who's the interim executive director at the Arkansas Education Association, and then Jeremiah Warrior, who is a 12th grade student at the Galloway High School. So after each one of them gives their 2 to 3 minute opening, then I will be back. I'll have some questions for them that they can answer, and then the second part we're going to open up for Q&A. And as we do that, when I come back, we'll have some, what's the word, protocols? House rules on how we're going to proceed, because we want to be orderly, we want to be respectful. So at this time, we're going to have Denham Banks to come up, and we're not entertaining questions yet. This is just their 2 to 3 minute opening. So each one of you will come in line as you are printed on the program. Denham?
Good evening. My name is Denham Banks. I am a senior at Watson Chapel High School. And a little about me is I am the president of Watson Chapel Student Council. I am a member of FBLA, and I'm also a member of NAACP. And I'm also the company commander and S2 of JROTC. I rank in the top 20 of my class and graduated with honors with a GPA of a 4.0. In the fall, I plan to attend the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, majoring in agriculture fields. Tonight's concerns, I would like to emphasize educational opportunities and the mental health of the student body. My first emphasis tonight will be educational opportunities, including the exposure. 1 being new technology, 2 being educational field trips, museum, and college tours. 3 is also understanding that every student may not go to college. With that being said, that could possibly mean whether it may be because of grades, money, or by desire. But they still too can be productive citizens and successful, which means allowing students to be exposed to a 2-year college or military. 2, participating in programs. 3, and or getting the skills for other vocational license. My final emphasis tonight will be the mental health of the student body due to the pandemic, recent tragedies, and student environment. This is now a greater need for the school to properly address areas of mental health such as depression, anxiety, lack of motivation in school, suicide and self-harm, low self-esteem, and etc. If asked how to resolve, just like we have counselors to guide us for a new step into the new world, and also as we have teachers to teach us about education, we need mental health counselors that are licensed to help us. In conclusion, I would like to thank the state representatives, Vivian Flowers, Stephanie Flowers, Ken Ferguson, and Mike Holcomb in his absence. For this opportunity to voice students, my hope is that the great work you do will continue and more opportunities like this will be offered to other students because the knowledge gained in listening to the parties would definitely be a healthy solution. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kedari Bush, and I am a graduating and proud graduating senior at Palm Bluff High School. And I also will be graduating with honors holding number 4 in my class with a 4.3 GPA. I too attend on planning here at the University of Arkansas at Palm Bluff. And my concerns today are not only mine, but also fellow classmates and peers of mine attending Palm Bluff High School. The first concern I have is our security. Security could be increased, and although there has been previous precautions to take in that, I feel as if it could have been done in the beginning of the school year instead of when the negativity has started to come. Another one I have to address is the lack of extracurricular activities, because as a teen myself and also looking out at my fellow peers, I realize when you have nothing to occupy your time with, you look to the outside, and if you're not receiving that at home for some or school for others, you're gonna find it anywhere you can get it. And with the security, I don't have all the answers, but one thing I do know for certain is the fact that people don't want to work for Palm Bluff High School or Palm Bluff School District. I don't know why. Maybe you all can provide me the answers with that. For the extracurricular, it takes the school and the community, and in order for students to get involved, it takes an equal part of the staff, the community, the adults, and the students. So hopefully you all can help, and I hope you all enjoy.
Good evening, and thank you, Representative Flowers, for putting this together. And I didn't know I had 2 minutes. As you guys see, I had a whole notebook.
You have 3 minutes.
But my name is Tremel Howell, and first I like to tell people all the time, I'm a wife and a mother first, of 3. I said, but I am the PTO president of Palm Bluff High School, and I've been more than involved their whole lives in the school district. And I am on the parent advisory committee that Superintendent Warren has in place. I'm not sure how far we're getting or going to get with that, but she does have that group put together. So, but I am a 25-year stakeholder. So therefore, I'm sure some of you have been here your whole life. I've been here 25 years. But I just like people to know that, you know, this is an issue. And so for me to be a part of this, the K-12 education in Palm Bluff Public Schools, so she said it's everybody, and we got to fix this issue. We must fix this issue. There's no can we, will we have to. This is an issue that has to be fixed, and we've got to come together to make that happen. But we got to have open communication for that. So that was the purpose. If you've seen in the paper, the PTO and members of the Palm Bluff High PTO, we all got together and put a letter together. Thank you, Ms. Daisha Thomas, for typing all this up for us, because she is the woman of words on our committee. And if you didn't get to see that, we do have a few copies of that letter that we did and sent to Secretary Keys and to all of the board, state board members. All of them also got a copy of the letter to let them know that we are totally concerned. We had some real things that stuck out to us with the lack of transparency from the start of our, and I can't say from the start because we went under state control in 2018. And so I like to also for people to know that I was one of the 110% wanting the state to take over because I felt like our school board wasn't doing us any good at that time. I figured somebody else could do it a little better. Let's give them a chance. And when we initially went under state control, Dr. Orr came here. And Dr. Orr was transparent. He communicated with all of us well with what was going on in my book. This is just from my perspective as a parent. And then he also, you know, we had our facilities meeting that we did because we knew we needed a new school. We knew in order to pull in more students, more and to build our community. We knew we needed a new school, so we started that process for that. So with that, but we did have a few things I just wanted to touch real quick. These are the things, if you hadn't read our letter, with lack of transparency in the district administration. The abandonment of our Pine Bluff High School site was one of the things that was on their list of things to do. Temporarily moving our students, our scholars from Pine Bluff High School over to Jack Roby, but yet no plan as to what you were doing with that ground or that facility. You know, if you do that, you just open it up for crime. You know, to have a spot, a black hole in the middle of our community. And the other thing that was important to us is the fact that we are in the process of, rebuilding, revitalizing our area. We are 2 blocks away from downtown Main Street, and we are revitalizing all that. Why would we want to move our brand new school someplace else when that's what we are in the process of doing, and building up that area and things. So that's some of the things that we talked about. And now our letter didn't just complain or give things that was not right or that we thought wasn't right. We also gave suggestions also on how to fix those safety issues. Because if you have a plan, like this lady just said, if you have a plan, well thought out plan put together for safety, you can do it. That school has been there for forever. You can do it. So we did offer suggestions, on how that can be done, so we can have a real conversation, and not just with us, with our police department, with everybody. We got to have a real conversation in order for this to happen. So, but I do have quite a bit more. But I sit down from there. Look, I sit down from there because, I don't also want you guys to forget that, we're in the middle of the rezoning also. So I think we need to look at all of the things that we need to be looking at for rezoning, and not just the Pine Bluff and Dollar District. What else do we need to do? We need the part of Industrial Park that we're not getting funds from. We're in fiscal distress. So if we get those funds, get that zoning area back in us, that's funds that's back into our school districts, to keep us from not being part of that fiscal distress. But thank you for your time.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you all for the invitation to be part of the panel. My name is Liz Piccone. I'm the interim executive director for the Arkansas Education Association, and so I represent the educational employees in the state of Arkansas. And think back to the beginning of the pandemic. Our teachers were heroes. They almost overnight had to change their teaching from in the classroom to go home. They had to set up classrooms in their dining rooms, in their kitchens. They still had to take care of their families. They still had to cook the meals, yet they had to keep track of the students that weren't showing up online. All this, the cafeteria workers were still making breakfasts and lunch, and people were coming up to school to get their meals. The bus drivers were driving buses to parking lots so that Wi-Fi would be available so students could do their lessons at home. Then it was decided we need to get the kids back at school. And what happened? Our teachers were hesitant because we all weren't vaccinated. A lot of our bus drivers are retired people, aging community, and all of a sudden, teachers were pushing back because they weren't sure it was safe. They had elderly parents at home. They also had compromised, maybe immune systems, and they would not rush back into the classrooms until we were sure it was safe. And they became the enemy because they didn't want to go back to school. We need to support our educational community, folks. They want support. They want a safe place to teach, and they want a safe place for our kiddos, and they want to be heard. They don't feel like they're being heard. The first week of May is Teacher Appreciation Week. Write a note to a teacher, a bus driver, a cafeteria worker, and thank them for what they do every day. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Jeremiah Warrior. I am a senior at Holloway High School. I currently serve as the student body president. I'm an OGLA member, a choir member. I also serve on the student advisory committee. I'm number 2 in my class, and I'm also graduating with a 4.3 GPA. Some of the concerns that I have for our district is our educational, as far as like our culture and climate. One of the things that I have seen a lot within my school itself is basically is the culture of it, the relationship between students and teachers, and even teachers and leadership. It's like we all have to walk around walking on pins and needles because we don't know each other. Another issue that I have is like we don't have anything that's pushing our kids out, showing them, hey, we do have good kids. It's not all bad kids. The things that you see, there are some good things that come forward. So,
Very good. Thank you so much. I just love our scholars. They are fabulous. Yeah. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Dr. Bloomberg, I did not see you when I acknowledged the Chancellor. My apologies. So we got Dr. Bloomberg with CR College. Also very supportive in the community. So when I sat there, I saw you and I said, oops. Okay. So I'm to give you regrets for Representative Holcomb, who had a previous engagement and could not be here, but is part of the delegation, so we definitely want to acknowledge Representative Holcomb. Okay? All right, so we have heard our opening comments from the panel. We appreciate you all. We have 1 hour. I don't think I need to ask everybody questions. You're here to ask questions. So I'm going to change that around a little bit. And I do want to say I have been actively involved in Pinewood School District since my children were in the district. I have 3 children who are alumni of Pinewood School District. And so during their years and even beyond, I was very, very active. And I'm definitely a stakeholder in what happens for our scholars and in the field of education here in Pine Bluff. So thanks to our legislative delegation for asking me to moderate this forum and this conversation. So what we're going to do, we are going to open it up. Now understand this is being recorded. There are designated people who are taking notes. So what I want to make sure you understand is you are being heard. This is not just a formality. This is maybe the 2nd or 3rd one of these I have moderated, but that was before COVID. And so I do know that our legislative delegation hear us. They will respond to the needs of their constituency. We are all here passionate about education. We are passionate about our scholars, and we are passionate about our city. And so we have people who will answer questions. Some of your questions may not have an answer today. They may not. They don't have all the answers, but we want you to ask your questions, okay? Obviously, we want to be respectful. We want one person at a time. We have 2 mics. Do I have 2 volunteers? There's another mic? Okay. Okay, we've got a volunteer here. And when you ask a question, we will ask you to stand, say your name, or if you want an organization, however you want to do that, and just speak clearly into the mic. If you have a question for a specific panelist, you can address your question to them. Or if you have a comment, we're going to take comments tonight. But we don't want you to stand and give a long dissertation, okay? Let's be respectful of the time because we have 1 hour. We have an hour left, okay? So I think that's plenty of time for your voices, and your concerns to be heard. So you can just stand where you are, and we've got a couple of volunteers who will bring the mic to you, and we'll go from there. Who wants to be first? Okay, yeah, you state your name into the mic, yeah.
My name is Lynette Frazier, and I like what Ms. Bush was saying, and I wanted to know, a lot of times we tell students what they need. What extracurricular activities would you all like to see? Is what I want to know. And if you don't have the answer now, I would like for you all to think about that and get it to us.
That's actually a good question. Honestly, I would say more clubs, like more creativeness. Like, it's going to take a combination of us both as adults and students to figure out a mutual agreement between the two. But most definitely more clubs, because the clubs I am in at school, we have lack of experience due to funding and all those other sorts. So I will most definitely talk amongst my peers and get those answers. Thank you for that question.
Very good question. And while we're going to the next one, we visited with some students, Mayor, who told us they at Piper Power said they wanted to swim team. That's an easy one, isn't it? Y'all, let me say, we have the best state-of-the-art aquatics in Highway. So the superintendent took note of that. So, okay, go ahead.
I want to ask the young man, Jeremiah, I want to ask you, do you feel that you have, say if you decided to go to college out of state, or you wanted to apply for a job out of state, do you feel that you have the education quality to compete in another area? Do you feel confident about the quality of education that you receive?
Thank you for your question. And to answer that, it's a good question. But to answer that, yes, I do. To a certain extent, I do believe that there is not everything. I'm not being taught everything that I should be taught, but I do also believe that what I am being taught could be applied to something that is being taught, and I can adjust and adapt to the culture. Thank you.
Okay, I'm from the school district, and in as much as this is an educational forum, I'd like to know where are your educators? You're here, you're discussing education, you have the parents, you have the students, you don't have the people that are there doing the groundwork. Where are they? This is an education.
Thank you so much for your question. So how we have conducted these town hall meetings, especially with a panel situation, because there are 3 school districts, what we elected to do was find a voice to represent teacher or educator concerns. But outside of that, we have been talking to and meeting with educators throughout the year, whether we're taking calls and concerns and to advocate on issues, or whether we are assisting with different events. So this is not the beginning and it's not the end. And if part of what educators who are in the audience as citizens would like to see is a follow-up that includes or focuses on educators as panelists, we'll do that.
Good evening. My name is Torres Eskew. I'm an English teacher at Darwin High School. I have a question for the students and possibly the adults that have something to do with the curriculum. Would you all be interested in a magnet school that will present kind of the STEM thing? You'll have the arts, mathematics, science, and technology, dance, debate. It'll offer you all some opportunities. And I've presented it a couple times, but I really think it would be nice if we had a magnet high school, this new high school that we're building, needs to be a magnet school. We need an auditorium because we don't have a meeting space that's big enough to house anyone in the district. I'm talking about on a campus. So I really think that would be a wonderful idea if we had a magnet school. What do you students believe about that? Do you think that would be a good idea? I would like to hear from each of you all. Thank you.
Now they want to put me first. But to answer your question, Mr. SQS, I believe that would be something nice, especially with now the way that the district is set up. Like you said, we don't have that. So to see that type of a change would be something new, but I think that would be for the better.
To answer your question, thank you. STEM is very important nowadays, and being at Watson Chapel High School, it's definitely taught me how important STEM actually was. Just because being in extracurricular activities outside of school, I've learned, but I've also learned that some of my peers aren't able to adapt to STEM. And maybe because they don't have the opportunity, and also because they're not aware of the resources, exactly. So I believe that would be a great idea. I also think about the younger minds, a lot of the 8th and 9th graders, upcoming seniors. So I believe that would be a great opportunity for the new generation coming up. So yes.
Thank you for that question, because I feel like that is a phenomenal idea. We lack in other things for us to do and other things to make us evolve as people. And if going to college or the military isn't it, then something in a creative aspect will be. And that's what we need to be supplied with as humans. And I feel like I really wish this would have been done. I hate that I'm graduating. That would be wonderful. But I am also looking out for the underclassmen, and that is something they need, and it will probably, I don't want to say, appreciate education way better. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Any of the other panelists want to address STEM at high school level? Magnet. Okay, thank you. Okay, next one. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to say this. I think that's a great idea, because I think that was one of the things that was in the Go Forward package candidate when they were talking about doing all 3 schools. If we go back and look at that plan that they initially put together, I do believe, and Dr. Wally is in the back, and he can attest to that. I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly, that was a part of that plan for years ago that they put together and submitted for our area.
Okay. So we have some more. You can
Good evening, Alfred Carroll, 39-year veteran, Pine Bluff School District. I heard you speak of magnet. I served as principal at 34 Fine and Performing Arts, Sam Taylor Science and Technology, Bel Air Math and Science. I worked to assist over at Broadmoor, and it was supposed to be the new thing, STEAM. STEAM. So there is room for the magnet concept, and I hate we let it go. But certainly, what I'd like to say, there's room for 2 high schools as well. One being one that focuses on general education, and the other being the arts or some other area of expertise. And I think the security thing, events. I went to Bills High School for a baseball game the other day. Everything was fenced in. everything was fenced in. So a fence certainly will help with security. And then the other thing, I heard you mention Go Forward Pine Bluff, and I like some of the work that they're doing. But I think if the removal of some of the dilapidated housing around our campus and increase the green space along with the fence and a new building, that would be awesome. Awesome. And sometimes our kids that are playing athletics and sports, and I'll be quick, they go to these other places and then they complain about Pine Bluff. And what I've been trying to tell these young ladies and young men is this. When these places were unincorporated and they were just a wild neighborhood, Pine Bluff had these facilities. We had the Civic Center, we had the Convention Center, we had parks. Long before these people even incorporated, they became cities. We can do it again. And let me say this, taxes are not popular. But one of the things that the Ukrainians has taught us, if nothing else, if it's going to be done, we've got to do it. We've got to do it. And moving our high school, the flagship, what is it going to do with those of you who own property, nice houses, and have someone cutting your lawns? What is it going to do with property values? And so there are a lot of things that we need to think about, and I certainly am willing to pay for that $3 a gallon gas, $4 a gallon gas, to take our show on the road and go to Little Rock and be seen and heard. I'm going to say this, and my wife did not agree with me. But sometimes you have to break the rule and then ask for forgiveness. Keeping on asking for permission to be liberated, to stand on our own, is not going to be given to us. It's not going to be given to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you very much. That's that old school activism right there. That's what that is. That's the school I'm from. All right. We've got several speakers lined up. They had one over here and then these two ladies up front. Okay. No, she's coming to you. Where's the second person? So we can have somebody on this side and somebody on this side. Where's that other mic? No, y'all need that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. My apologies. Okay. Right here in the front. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm not with Mr. Carroll. We came along together. I'm a 41-year veteran in the Pine Bluff School District in education, and then 2 years in Chapel, and then 7.5 in Pulaski County Special School District. And I've become involved as a chairperson of the Pine Bluff Concerned Stakeholders, to the point of on yesterday, we served a vote of no confidence in Superintendent Barbara Warren, and no confidence in the annexation governance of Dalloway and Pine Bluff School, and it was undersigned by 140 stakeholders. And when I saw Attorney Flowers said we can do better than this, I agree. My last 4 years in Chapel and the Pine Bluff School District, I was a secondary math instructional specialist. So I was privileged to data the dynamics of how the testing and so forth. And I agree we can do better than that. And the lack of transparency that we're experiencing in the district, it doesn't start there. It starts at the Arkansas Department of Education. Somebody like you might say, good old activist. Because the assessment, what makes us can do better than this. And our Arkansas Department of Education pulled the PARC test in 1 year. The ACT Expires test, they knew in 2017 that the scores were flat across the state. And I've said this, stood before the Arkansas State Board in December and January and asked, why did you allow this assessment to continue when we were the only state in the United States giving this assessment? That's correct. We're the only state, and then I also came in the knowledge that we, teachers of color, were not privileged to ACT Aspire items and the manner in which they assessed our students. So yes, we can do better than this. When we as educators of color are privileged to the same thing that the others are, we can do better than that with our students. So when I see this, I know the things that surrounding that. And I'm even concerned with Representative Flowers and Ferguson. Did you have a part in this Cambian assessment that they're bringing before? Oh, so you're looking like, what is that? Because when I look at that, the same thing, it's a new assessment. I'm not a phonics person, but it's CAMBIUM. That the Arkansas Department of Education, again, no transparency, they want to spend a 7-year contract of $75 million on this assessment. They say that the plan is to have Arkansas teachers review every item in the question test bank. And my question is, will all teachers, even teachers of color, be privileged to these items in the test bank, or will we be left out like we were with the ACT Expire? And I know that they were. I have the results of the study where certain teachers were privileged, but now here they say the plan is to have Arkansas teachers, but it didn't say ALL. And then also, I'm going to say this, and I'm trying to close, but you know what? We're perishing because of a lack of knowledge. Because one concern was that this test, that the 9th through 10th grade test would not be subject specific like the ACT Expire. So why in the world are we spending $75 million on it? Then they also say part of our grading, right here, yeah, we can do better than that. They have criteria where our students are judged on the best ACT in 3 years, but guess how many times they give them the test? 1.
Thank you. Thank you for educating us on that. You know, the lady, the lady with the pink. Yeah, the lady, I'm sorry, with the pink mask. Sorry about that. Yeah, we do know racism exists in testing and education, so it is still, yes ma'am. Thank you for your comments, yes ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Roxy Valentin, and I'm a parent. I have 2 students at Galloway High School. And I don't even know anything about PTA. I would come, but I've never heard of anybody say or send me a note home talking about PTO. But I'm at the school every day. I'm at the school all the time. And I was appalled when school first started, when my grandson was taking chemistry and English and didn't have a chemistry or English teacher. Now I wonder what they did those 3 months that teachers were not hired. I had a friend whose grandbaby was in elementary school, 2nd and 3rd grade, had a substitute. How can our babies have a chance if they don't even have a teacher knowledgeable in the subject matter that they're supposed to be learning? Now that's my problem. Another problem I had was I talked to all the teachers. They know me. They got my phone number because I'd be mad. If my boy acts out in your class, you got to call me on the phone or something. But the leadership isn't there. My grandson is a Galloway High School. He's got the principal, but the high school principal that's assigned over there stays at the middle school, and the assistant principal is over there. I got a problem with that. As a parent, I'm trying to teach what I know at home, but I don't know chemistry, and I got it. And as a parent, I volunteered at the school all the time, but I did it at the elementary level because I thought they needed me. I read to them, but in the last 3 years, no one has called me to come and read to VIP. I don't know what happened to it. I'm not reading anymore. We had parents who were males who walked around Pine Bluff High. My church member, rest his soul, Mr. Fletcher, was on that campus all the time, and they didn't have this fight. And as a parent, I know that parents are not involved, and that upsets me. And I tell them about themselves when I see them, especially if I know them. Because some of I take care of grandkids. Right. But my son has friends there. And if I saw one trying to get her daughter to fight somebody, I said, what are you doing? So I want to be involved as a parent, but I also want my kids to get a good education with a teacher who knows their subject. Right. I want the first group, the kindergarten, and all of those to have a teacher, not a babysitting substitute. Yes, ma'am. That is not qualified.
Ms. Miller, we got your comments. We hear you loud and clear. Thank you for your concerns. Now we're going to ask Ms. Howe if she would address the PTO issue.
Well, I'm PTO president of Pine Bluff High School. But Dalloway, I was just informed that, because I tried to find out if Dalloway had a PTO, so that way we could go out collaboration, together, but I didn't find that out until just now. The young man told me that they do have one at Dalloway, and that it's supposed to be Miss Tamika Cross, that is Takesha Cross over at Dalloway. So I plan to try to contact her because, like I said, I thought it was only right, since we're all supposed to be Pine Bluff High School, under the Pine Bluff School District, that we all are do this.
So can you connect with her afterwards? So you all can exchange numbers. Okay, so she's going to connect. Thank you so much. No, we got three people before you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michael Heisler. I'm just a parent as well. My sons go to Pine Bluff High. And my question is this. Instead of expelling the students and suspending the students and taking that fight from school grounds to the streets where they're killing each other, why don't we have something called restorative justice? If a country in Africa can do it, they're going through it right now, Rwanda, why can't we do it? Students, what do you think? Is it worth it? I know you've lost friends.
Yeah.
The definition of restorative justice
yes,
is when me and my wife have a fight. I come to my wife, we sit down, we discuss what the argument was about in a calm, concise manner. If we can't do it alone, then we get a third party. Then, instead of suspending a student, we have an ISS, in-school suspension. So that student's not on the street. We don't expel a student. We have a different way of teaching that student. That way they're not out on the street trying to kill each other because it wasn't taken care of at school. Now that takes the parents too. Parents, we got to talk with our kids. What's this look like? What's your day look like? But if everything's happening in school, something has to happen at the school. We have four security guards at Pine Bluff High. For how many students? Yeah, too many. That should be an easy fix. We shouldn't lose any more students to violence because we should be able to fix it at the school. I remember getting invites at school. My principal handled me, and then my mama handled me. And I know it's different. I know the laws are different now. But that's what restorative justice is about. Can't we do that?
Thank you, thank you. Restorative justice is an amazing program. It's working all across the country. Not sure why Arkansas is pulling up the rear on it, but it's definitely something for our leadership in education to be looking at. Thank you for your comment. We have a question here, and back over to here. Okay, we're gonna get Alderman, and then we'll come back over here.
Thank you. Hey, good evening, everybody. Senior Alderman Stephen Mates, Fourth Ward Alderman Stephen Mates, City of Pine Arkansas. Hey, it's good to be here, and it's good to see you all meeting like this. It's great. Another thing, Mayor Washington, how are you? Good to see you. And my thing is neighborhood watch programs. We have to rebuild our neighborhood watch program. I started it 2 years ago before COVID came in, and we had already started rebuilding the neighborhood watch program. They were strong. We had about 5 in the Fourth Ward, which really be Galloway, Pinecrest, and Cottonwood. And we got to get the neighborhood watch program back. A lot of the members gotten older, and they couldn't make the meetings in the evening time. But you know what? They were together. Galloway, Pinecrest, Cottonwood. They would bring food. We have potlucks, the neighborhood watch program, and they came in faithfully. And crime wasn't like this it is now. I'm talking about just 2 years ago. I'm a part of it. I helped them rebuild, restore, and renew the neighborhood watch program better in the Fourth Ward. We had the most in the Fourth Ward. People came together, and they loved coming together, black and white. Mexicans, you have some Mexicans come in over the Galloway school district. They came. They brought good food. The ladies cooked that day at home. I mean, you know, really, and people really enjoyed the neighborhood watch program. And right now, we don't see any neighborhood watch program. That's what got me elected. My third term. I'm telling you, it works. And the people love to come and talk to people. Get at the house. Better before the sun go down, they come in and they talk and have a good time. You got to catch the vision of the neighborhood watch program, and they keep the neighborhood safe. People calling each other with the phones and everything, telling them neighborhood watch program meeting tonight. I want to thank you all for listening. I'm Steve Mays, senior.
Thank you. Now, I think, Trudy, were you all standing before? She was standing before. And you all are going to have to stand up so we can see you, okay? Y'all got to stand up. Because when you raise your hand and put it down, I don't know. So you, Trudy, and this young lady, yeah. So we don't want to overlook anyone, okay? But you got to stand up.
Okay. My first was just a brief comment, just a caution. From experience, I just hope that even if we get into the facility, just know that that does not fix old problems. So there's some things that really need to be addressed. I attended this town hall in hopes to maybe hear some specifics as to what the teacher concerns were, the concerns about security specifically on the campuses. And then I would also want to know from the legislatures what steps were being taken for both Galloway and Pineville School District to be removed from state control. What steps have already been in play? What steps are currently happening? Has anything been done or resolved as a result of being under state control? Have we made any improvements in those efforts specifically? And then I also just maybe wanted to ask about all of these new ideas for curriculum. Which ones are attached to real businesses and jobs for students post-graduation?
Okay, that's good. That was a lot of questions. Let's go back. They taking notes. What was it?
So the last one was with these new curriculum plans and ideas for, I guess, learning, buildings, creative arts, STEM, etc. How many of these are actually attached to real jobs that these students could seek in their community? And are we focusing on jobs that they can actually take in agriculture? Something relevant to the community, because jobs are very important. If we're educating them in these fields, we want them to be able to have the same jobs.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. Wait, Ms. Trudy, before you, let's see if we have some response to any of that.
I just wanted to answer your question about the conversations with the state regarding us being under state control. We've consistently had conversations, even prior to excuse me, prior to the Dollarway. What?
The
annexation. Thank you. Prior to annexation, we had several conversations, and I'll just be frank, I was not supportive of it for the very reasons that you mentioned. Before, we spend and invest in facilities and talk about cost savings and talk about annexation or anything, my focus has been on academics. And so to answer your question about when we come out from under that, that's completely, actually is completely up to the Secretary and ultimately the State Board. And one of the things that I think we ought to be mindful of and leave here with, you've heard someone, I think Mr. Carroll, talk about how important it is to be heard by the State Board. They met today, and they have meetings every month. We need to be vocal about wanting to elect our own board. And we have the facilities meetings where Ms. Smith is, present. We need to make sure that we're communicating what we want to see. The way that this law exists, all of the power, and I said it earlier, Secretary Key is our school board. And so that communication is very, very important. If any of us can participate and attend state board meetings, we need to do that. Ms. Wright has gone up and spoken before them. We have gone before the state board. They need to hear from us. We need to talk and communicate, but they need to hear from us. And I believe that we come out from under that by 2024, if not before. That's wholly up to the state board and to Secretary Key.
Thank you. And one of the things that should happen is how can organize to make sure we take people to the state board. Because like I said, that's where we need to be. That's where the Parental community needs to be, is at the board meetings. That's what we need to be. I remember Little Rock when they were going through this. Of course, I worked there and had some obligations, but, the community was at those meetings. So that's something you might want to put on the to-do list. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Trudy Willis, and I have a scholar. I just graduated from the student ministry last year. My concern is always about the education and the academics. I remember years ago when Senator Flowers and I were making comments regarding my son. She said, Trudy, every parent wants the same thing you want for your child. And she made me understand that this community is important to us to see what we can do. When I listen to what she says about preparing our kids, preparing our scholars, I'm thankful for Maddie Collins and Ivy League. They took my son. The Clark Scruggs. And now he's at Morehouse struggling, yes, but he's there. And he wants to be he's in biology to study medicine. So Ms. Roxy, I know what you mean when you talk about chemistry, and there's no one there to teach it. So what we did, only because I knew about a concurrent program, those of you that are seniors, and you may have one class for the whole year, there's an opportunity for you to come over here to UAPB, help with the enrollment here, and let the state pay for it. This will prepare our kids and give them the prerequisites that they need. Now, my son is at Morehouse struggling in algebra because they introduced my son to algebra virtually in the 7th grade in Jack Roby. You cannot introduce algebra to to a kid virtually when there is no teacher and they can't ask questions. You can't do it. It's not good for the student. But what I'm saying is I had an opportunity because I was on an outreach program with the superintendents at that time that shared with us about concurrent classes. So we had students here, a gentleman over there with a 4.3. You didn't need but what, 1-2 classes to finish up this year? You should have been up here at UAPB helping us with our enrollment, getting classes to take with you 2 classes. We have got to know all the resources that we can give for our kids. It's hard out here. And I'll tell you, I will do anything I can to help with the education. We had 300 seniors graduating last year from Pineville High School. I got excited. First year hearing about Concur. We had so many students. My son had 1 class that he needed to take in high school. I got excited. It had to be others. I'm thinking I'm going to get at least 100 kids to come over here to UAPB. It's going to help with the enrollment. They're going to help with references as they head off to college. I had 12. 12. And then the next semester they told me if I don't get at least 10, I can't have my kids over here. And then you have HIP program, Helena, West Helena. They sucking it up here at UAPB. They have their kids over here. I'm not going to just say UAPB. They could probably go to CR. Whatever's required where they can get these prerequisites and the state will pay for it. We don't know that. We didn't know that. And I worked hard. They gave me, I was there on a Friday. They said, Ms. Reed, you have to Monday to get these kids. I left from where I was and went home to call every parent that was on my list. And I wanted to get 12 kids. That broke my heart. But when it comes to education, when people are moving to this community with families, the first question they ask you is, what is the education level? That's a part of economic development. Where are they going to live? Education is going to be key. We have got to get education in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Thank you for your passion. Okay, we got 4 remaining people standing. Let's get them, and then if we have others, we'll take them. We got 5. Somebody. Okay, I got you. Okay, all right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kelly Daniels. I'm a senior at Dalloway High School, and my concern today is about my kids being unprepared for the real world. So I remember when I was in 2nd grade, we did signatures, but I believe along the way, prior about when I got out of 3rd grade, they stopped with signatures. And now today, I don't know how to write my name in cursive at all. I just scribble scrabble, I'll be honest with myself, and try to do the best I can. Having midlife classes, driver's ed, there's a lot of my seniors right now that do not have their license. And they come and talk to me about, well, Kelly, can you help me with getting my permit? I feel like as a school, we should actually have group classes where we can start preparing our children to be able to drive on the road. Also, with mental health, as one of the 2 girls said about mental health is very important too, to get kids ready for the real world and be able to have a good mindset going out into the real world. Also, with career paths, there's not enough career classes. I know we have ROTC. Not all students want to go into the military. That's fine. Not everybody want to be doctors, lawyers. Not everybody want to do that. Some people just want to go straight into the workforce. So what do you have at your school right now that's going to help children just go straight to the workforce? Also, the self-defense classes, the right way, in the right manner. Being able to have self-defense for yourself, just in case in different areas, because if something was to happen in a place of area, I wouldn't know how to defend myself, because I never got taught that sort of thing. And also, I have a question for my peers. What are some classes that do you recommend to benefit our children for the real world?
Okay, any scholars want to answer? A class? Everybody said start with
Okay, I know I was asked that question previously, but you just triggered something in my mind. Maybe if we got a boxing club, instead of people fighting, getting mad they lose, wanting to kill somebody, get a boxing club, get in the boxing gloves, and that will also make their hands registered. So if they do decide they want to knock somebody out, they will go to jail. Not supporting that, but it may prevent them killing each other. I am tired of losing classmates. I'm tired of losing children, period. Some that are younger than me. That is ridiculous. And what was your other question? I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, the boxing club, driver's education. I also, because I have also had peers to come to me and ask me to help them with their permits. And what I tell them, go to YouTube. So yeah, that's the two I can agree with right now at the moment.
Okay, I agree with the boxing. I agree with the driver's ed. One of the topics that I'm really feel strong about would be mental health. Despite of the traumatic event that happened at Watson Chapel, just a lot of things that have been happening, period. Me and Ms. Bush had a friend that was murdered by gun violence. And it was during the virtual years in 11th grade. And our mental health was very low. And we just needed a break. And I feel like in school we kind of don't have a break. It's just every week it's something different. It's a new course every week. So if we were to have in our schools a mental health counselor or a mental health club where we talk about our feelings, not necessarily like an AA meeting, but a mental health, I guess I would say a club, because all of us could benefit from mental health.
Great. Okay. Jeremiah?
I agree with what the lady said, but one thing I also agree with what you said about preparing us for the real world. Like you may not know, we have classmates now who don't know how to sign a check, or even like you said, sign their name in cursive. So I think different classes or incorporating stuff like that would be awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, another comment, Ms. Bush.
To address the mental health aspect, I have brought it to Ms. Warren's attention. Specifically, Mental Health Mondays. If we start our week off right, getting everything off our chest, it will help. We have not only students that go through things, but also the adults. We need some type of trauma training, like helping us cope with human emotions, helping us cope with things that happen to us on a daily basis. And Mondays are a mess. Everybody can probably agree to that. But if we start our week off right, that can help us, and that being repetitive will become a cycle. It don't have to be just a Monday. It can be any day of the week that you check in with yourself. Because if we don't have good mental health, how are we going to be able to comprehend what we're being taught in the class?
Good evening. My name is Danny Walker, and I'll be brief because I know we're short on time. First, I would like to thank all of our scholars. Congratulations to all of you, and I wish you much success. Now, my question is for Representative Flowers and also for Representative Ferguson. My question is, what is the bottom line on the timeline that we're looking for on this Pine Bluff High decision? Are we looking at 3 months, 6 months, 60 days? The decision on whether the school is going to be moved or not.
So I just had a conversation with Aaron Franks today and asked, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I just had that conversation or asked that question of Aaron Franks today, and I don't have there's no specific date, and she is supposed to get back to me with an exact process and timeline. But I'll just end it with that. And earlier, you may not have been here when we talked about this being a series and there being follow-up. And we're also going to be certain
to share some of the information that we're able to gather as a follow-up online and in future meetings. I don't have an exact answer, but I did ask the question.
Thank you for the question.
Good evening. I wanted to address...
Wait 1 second, sir. She has a response.
I think I can speak now. Just to piggyback on real quick what Representative Flowers just said. One of the things that Secretary Key sent back in the email response to me, because I was in our letter that we sent to him, and one of the things he sent back was that this timeline that has been established will be utilized probably under the state law when they decide to give us the state control back, give it back to us under state law. And as a part of that, they will be determining then probably when the school will be, if it's in the same place or in the moved. And so one of the things he said in here, he said whether the high school remains in the current location or is located in the future, a safe learning environment must be priorities for everyone. So with that statement, I said to him that I don't think you're understanding our community. I don't think you're understanding, our push for having the revitalization area and our school standing where it is. So that was one of the responses he sent me back from my letter.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, this is Roxy. I want to acknowledge that in the beginning of the school year, I was your student's teacher. I was his teacher. When they hired me, I was hired to teach 11th and 12th grade English. On the first day of school, no, the day before the first day of school, I found out that not only would I just be teaching 12th grade English, but I'll be teaching oral communications, drama, and I have another class I teach, and it just wiped my mind and things. So I teach 5 subjects. I volunteered to teach 11th grade English until they hired a teacher. They didn't pay me. I didn't need to be paid. But I was your son's teacher, and I'm going to tell you this too. He passed my class. He passed my class, and he's a brilliant student. Both my children are brilliant. So I wanted to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge the PTO concern. We understand there's something, I think it kind of fell off, and we're trying our best. With my student council, I'm trying to get my parents involved in that kind of way so we can do some fundraising. We need the community support. Real fast, curriculum, y'all, I'm not going to even say anything on curriculum. When you said mental health, baby, I have meditation Mondays in my classroom. And when I tell you all, when we did it, we would have rolling classes. When would Jeremiah and Caitlin? Our classes would be wonderful. I'm talking about we'd have somebody get up and lead meditation, and we would roll. I think we need to go back to it. When we open our meetings in the district, we have a moment of meditation. It doesn't matter if it's prayer. It doesn't matter if it's silent time, if it's journaling. It works. We have productive meetings when we do it. And I have to say something about security. I got injured on my job in December. The day before we left for winter break, I called and reported it a week later because I didn't have basically they didn't communicate enough with me on how to handle the process. They denied me workers' comp. I was injured in a cast for how long, y'all? I know 8 weeks. Yeah, I was in for 8 weeks. Refused to pay me for it. My twin brother right here, both of us had, my twin brother right here. Y'all forgive me, but I am disabled. That's why I couldn't stand. Really quickly, I know it was on the news on the radio somewhere about a teacher that went viral for falling or being tripped and being pushed down. I am that teacher. Standing at 6'5" and baby, I weigh every bit of so much. but I said that to say that I have been in my concerns about security from before school started, when they told us that there would only be 3 officers on the campus of Pine Bluff High School. And then still, I did it then we had the riot, so I did it again. I was pushed down, and I asked again. We were promised security by district officials, and it never happened. We were promised contracts to protect us, and they're going to retaliate against me for this, but I'm going to say it. We were promised contracts to protect us
by district officials. It never happened. Ms. Morgan said that. But I said all that to say that my babies yesterday, I got in my car, no, day before yesterday, I got in my car in fourth period and decided that I was not going to come back. Cried my eyes out because I love my babies so much. And I don't ever want my students at Pine Bluff High School to think that Dr. Eskew gave up on them. Never. But I realized that I have to stay in case I do have to take that bullet for a student. Because there was a shooting on our campus, and there was no meeting for our children, there was no meeting for our staff, and the district never came and spoke to us. It is egregious the way that the staff and our babies are being treated. Forget that we grown, that we are adults. Let's remember that our future is threatened every single day they step foot on the campus of Pine Bluff High School because of the carelessness of adults.
We hear you. Thank you both. Thank you both for sharing your stories. We have two more speakers.
My name is Julius Wright, a stakeholder here in the city of Pine Bluff. My question is, on this data sheet, why is the state funding per student different in each district? For example, you have Watson Chapel is $9,969 in state funding per student, and Pine Bluff School District is $7,018 in state funding per student. So how did they calculate this?
Okay, do we know how they calculate? Okay,
so I
have your attention.
Yes.
Representative Flowers.
I couldn't begin to tell you what the funding formula is, but there is a funding formula. Millage, you get local dollars, and if you go on the website, and I'll share a link and look at the funding for every school, it's going to be different. One of the things many years ago, the Lakeview case, and at the time I worked in a capacity where I was able to attend meetings across the state. Certain schools that have needs get major federal dollars, and that doesn't necessarily go to teachers or classroom instruction. It might go to consultants. But when you see the per pupil, it's going to be based upon the funding formula. It's going to be based upon federal dollars. It's going to be based upon millage and local dollars. And so that's why it's going to be different for every school district.
Thank you. Our last question.
I think I have more of a comment.
Okay.
I have a few, but I'm going to make it brief. My name is Daisha Thompson. I'm the parent of a 10th grade student.
Okay, let me have your attention so we can hear Ms. Thompson.
Yes, ma'am. I'm the parent of a 10th grade student at Pine Bluff High School, and I do have my older son that graduated in 2017. So I definitely have a vested interest in the success of the school. I would like to address parental involvement because I hear that a lot. The parents aren't involved. The parents don't care. That's not true. We have an awesome group of parents at Pine Bluff High that are involved, and one of the issues that I have seen that has impeded parental involvement is that we just don't know what's going on. And that has been a big problem to get information from the top to trickle down. So what we have done as a PTO is we go out and we grab that information. We have created a Facebook page. We will inundate you with dates and meetings, and we make sure we have text groups so we get that message out to our parents. So I definitely want to address that because I really get sick of it that the parents aren't involved, because we are. I heard someone, Ms. Valentin, talk about missing teachers. My son is he's in the 10th grade, he's taking an 11th grade math class, Algebra 2, at Pine Bluff High School. He had a teacher in that classroom until the 6th week of school. That teacher either quit or was fired or whatever happened. He didn't have a teacher in that classroom until about 4 weeks ago for an Algebra 2 class. I stopped being able to help him with math when he was in the 4th grade. So I was no help, but I had to hire a tutor for my son to pass this Algebra 2 class, and that's just not acceptable. Especially if These children want to take advanced placement classes, and we don't have certified teachers to teach these classes. They don't have, like I said, the staffing is horrible. Any given day at Pine Bluff High, you'll have 5, 6, 7 classes in the gym. That's unacceptable because they don't have teachers to fill those classes. So I'll go past that. I'm a big proponent of changing the narrative at Pine Bluff High. What we see all of the time, and probably always will, the negatives, you see them everywhere. They don't accentuate the positives at that school. We have very intelligent scholars at both Pine Bluff High and Baldwin. But you don't hear about that. Now, you let somebody pop somebody in the eye, you'll see that everywhere. But you don't hear about those 40, 50 kids we inducted in National Honor Society today. You don't hear about that. Right. So we definitely need to work as a community on changing that narrative when it comes to our students. Another thing that I'm a firm believer in is when you subject students to subpar education and subpar facilities, that affects behavior as well. Because if you put me in a building that's falling apart, I don't think you care. So guess what? I don't need it. So once we start doing better for these kids, they deserve a state-of-the-art building that is beautiful, that it looks like the administration cares about them. And I believe that would be the first step in changing the behavior at the school. Let these babies know you care about them. Thank you. One more thing, and I'm going to stay down. I also would like to say the resources that are available to the district, they often go underutilized because I don't know if they're threatening to have outside entities come in and assist. Ms. Reedus mentioned the Ivy Center for Education. There are so many, hey, Ms. Collins, there are so many outside entities and organizations that are willing to help. We just need to know how, when, and where, and I'm sure willing to roll up their sleeves to do that. And last thing, mental health. I heard that, and I'm glad they mentioned that. Our students are definitely in need of mental health counseling as well as conflict resolution and how to solve these problems without getting violent. And so that's definitely something that the district needs to look at doing for our scholars. And I'll sit down.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for, okay, we've got 2 more. Let's go ahead and take Dr. Watley and this gentleman, and this will be the absentee. Oh, 3 more. Okay. All right, you all, this will have to be the last 3, okay? Okay? So, Dr. Watley, you go ahead and then Pastor, hey, yeah, we'll get you all.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be brief. A lot of things are on my heart tonight that I've heard, particularly because I've mentioned these things to the leadership, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, and just like you, nothing, right? And so I'm pretty sure a lot of you saw my letter, and that really what made me write the open letter because everyone has been talking about these things. There's nothing being done, so it's time out for the backboard room talks. That's right. But I want you all to know, just like you all have articulated, that these are solvable issues. It's not hopeless. Everything that you all have said are in alignment with what has been said in a backboard room or before. It just has not been executed. Dr. Carroll, what you mentioned about the magnet schools, that was presented, as Ms. Howe talked about. But more so, I just want to give an example of this teacher thing because I had to apologize to some people because when I found out, I kind of blew up on them about this gym situation and math classes, not having a teacher, because when I did teach, I saw firsthand how that can impact the economic prosperity of a child. For example, there was teaching chemistry, a simple function in a calculator, 3 or 4 buttons, and a young lady did not know how to do that. And it hit me like, wow, if you would have known how to do that on the ACT, you probably would have got a 24 or 5 versus the 17 you got. And so that was a product of sitting in the gym that day. They probably could have taught that. So that's really criminal in my mind to handicap students like that and limit their future. And this is going on and on and on. But there is a solution because we do have the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, and we do have Southeast Arkansas College. So there's enough money in this community to endow professors at the university level. Therefore, it would relieve some of the professors on the campus to come into the school and teach in the void areas. This was presented. And down at the university level, there where they can do research and teach. And the existing professor can come down through a land grant mission and teach in the classrooms. This is easy. And it's a plan. It's about having a plan. They've done all of this without a plan. But more so, they are operating in this fashion, 2 high schools, whatever, all this stuff, with teacher shortages. I'm doing
Thank you, Dr. Wadley. If you all have not read his open letter, you all need to read that. You need to read that. It covers everything. Okay, we got 2, the last 2. Brief comments.
Thank you very much. My name is Jerry Brassfield. I'm what you call a reader, and being a reader, you pick up on things. Each of you have received these sheets coming in. If you notice in the top corner, there's a little box up there. Talks about funding. If you notice the Pine Bluff School District funding, per student, $7,018 per student. Turn the page. Do you see the difference?
Right.
Do you see the difference?
Yeah, someone is brought. We've had a gentleman.
Now, let me make a statement here. We've been silent too long when we let other folks make our decisions for us. Not only what we do, but how to raise our children, while almost at the same token, add more prison beds. So we have to wake up and stand up. And demand something. Silence is not going to get us anything. We have to be counted and make our voices heard. And we have to have plans. We can't just meet and talk.
That's right.
We got to have plans. Now, somebody asked me about the school system. If you look back, I came to Pine Bluff in '59. Pine Bluff School District offered everything needed in the community. They trained people to go from school to work. And the city grew out of the school system. And when you start killing off the school, the city started dying. So in our planning, we have to plan a school system that is going to do what the community needs, not just talk.
How's everybody doing? Courtney Smith, I'm a teacher at Donnelly. Just two things, and I know we're all anxious for our school board to get back, but I will say this. When we get there, let's elect the right vote. We recognize Donnelly would still be open.
That's right.
If we had the right folks on the board.
That's right.
Pine Bluff District would bring in the shape it's in if we had the right folks on the board. So I know we have our friends and our cousins, and sometimes the empty wagons make a whole lot of noise. So just because somebody has a mic and they can talk good, don't mean they're right for the board. Okay? So let's be mindful of that. And we'll be back in the same shape. The last thing, and this is to our representatives. I do know about, I think Ms. Howard mentioned about the tax money. Having grew up in Dalloway, went to school there and teach there, we focus on the industrial park money. But I want us to check the part of Dalloway that is mixed in with Whitehall on the other side. And that is the Harding community. Because that's where I went to school from Dalloway. Called the bus Dalloway, but the Whitehall bus was right there too. I literally had an option. I could go to Whitehall or Dalloway. So when you go from 270 past where San Diego's is, technically, all of that is Dalloway School District. But I wonder, because our zip code growing up was 72150. I think people mentioned the 71602, but there's another zip code out there. And our mail came through Sheridan. but we voted in Whitehall. So it makes me wonder who gets that tax money. And that's from all the way to the Grant County line, was all Dalloway School District, and literally Princeton Pike, Hardin Evans Road, all of that was Dalloway District. But as time went on, you saw more and more Whitehall buses. So I think we should really take a hard look at that. They robbed Dalloway and folks was kind of silent on that. That's the truth. Since we are one district, I think we ought to move forward looking at that.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Thank you to everyone who has come out, who has contributed comments, thoughts, solutions. A lot has been said. Note takers have their comments. And we know we can do better for our scholars. We know that. But like you said, there's got to be a plan from parents in the community. The school board right now is in Little Rock. Community, PTO, you all have got to take this on the road to Little Rock. That's where our board, that's where the decisions are being made. Don't let anybody fool you. That's where the decisions for our community is being made. We need to plan to go to the next 6 board meetings in a row with at least 50 to 65 strong. That's what needs to happen. And these concerns need to be voiced. The letters are good. It's good to put it in writing. But let me tell you something that I know from experience. There is strength in numbers, and organized people have power. That's the motto we use for our work. That is what I use in the work I do in the community. And when I say the community, I mean all across the state of Arkansas. There's strength in numbers, and organized people have power. And when you do things the right way, you will see a difference. You will see a difference. I'm a witness to that. So thank you for your comments. Thank you to this wonderful panel, to our scholars. Let's give our scholars a round of applause. Excellent. It is excellent. And to the scholars who came tonight and spoke, thank you for coming. Okay? This is about you and your future. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back over. You got a closing comment? Either of you? Got a closing comment? Just briefly now.
Just briefly. I've been taking notes. We've talked about a lot. This room is packed. When we have an opportunity to speak on behalf of all of our school districts, because there's some concern about Watson Chapel being lumped into all of these issues. We have a city with children who attend 2 school districts, 3 high schools, several junior high and elementary schools, and they deserve our advocacy. We heard Mrs. Wright talk about the test assessment. That's incredibly important. She's absolutely right about how we have skipped around. We're about to be on our 3rd assessment since I've been a legislator. It's very, very important. We could talk about this all night. We'll have opportunities to continue to talk, but we need to act. We have wonderful students who came out today who told us what they need. Everyone in this room, we do not need the action of a state secretary of education or a superintendent or a legislator to go on those campuses and work with these children. And I'm going to end my remarks by saying this. It's human nature for us to react when we're worried or concerned or upset or want to see something go a certain way. It's human nature for us to come out in droves because we want to see something happen now in response to something that we didn't want to see happen. The real work is when there's not a whole lot going on. When it's time to vote. When it's time to go sit in a meeting and you don't really know what's on the agenda and you think you're going to be bored. That's when it's time to show up. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Flowers, thank you, Representative. Senator Flowers wants to make a 60-second closing.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I'm glad that the meeting happened. I'm glad to see all the people from our community out here, young people, whose future it is that we're hoping the best for. Some things, we all know what the students brought up, but I just want to make a point about how local community leaders should be involved in this whole process with the PTO. My concern for many years has been the lack of taking advantage of opportunities, resources at the state level. And this school district in Galloway was under state control. The state control can only last for 5 years by statute. So I don't know where the 2024 thing came in, if it's been in the state takeover since 2018. But joint use agreements, grants are available at through the commissioner's office, the Department of Education. Many of the school districts within my senatorial district have taken advantage of these. And for the longest, since I've been in the legislature, I've been asking and really trying to urge people in the schools, to make use of joint use agreements. Those are agreements between local officials, city, county, and the school districts that will address things like health care, having a place for healthy exercise. When I drive around Pine Bluff, and I'm a graduate of Pine Bluff High School, my son finished from Galloway, it sickens me to see our buildings, our school facilities, campuses, just being shut down, abandoned, but then being sold. Personally, I just cannot appreciate my tax dollars having been paid for these facilities that are now being sold for just pennies on the dollar. I don't get that. That hasn't been brought up. But we find out about it just, prying. Nobody is telling us anything. I've had trouble having communications with the Commissioner of Education. I have to call the governor to get him to respond. Since 2016, you had the Alzheimer campus that was exposed and abandoned, and all the just waste. Smart, smart boards, boxes of microscopes, brand new books, desks, furnishings, all that. And now the buildings were leveled after we started asking for that property to be conveyed to the city of Alzheimer in 2016. And finally it was done at the end of last year, 2021, December. And then, but with all the buildings torn down that were usable, the gym. It pains me that we can't have places where these schools used to present and teach children, have exercise for the whole community. We have problems with diabetes, obesity, all kinds of health issues, mental health too. And a lot of this is begging for some type of idea and vision where the city partners with this school district. And we protect these buildings that we've paid our monies for. That offends me. I went to Carver Elementary School. The whole campus has been sold. I just found that out. Forest Park, another campus. I mean, we paid $475 for the building and then sell it for $100? Well, what is this? A whole campus for $25,000, $40,000? What is this? It concerns me. And I want to encourage the students that are here, because one thing I've noticed since I've been up at the legislature since 2005 is the fact that they don't really think much of our students. They don't think much of our students. Now in the paper today we see where they want to scrap the ACT scores and just go by your grade point. And they used to accuse Dalloway District of having inflated grades. And then the university president at Fayetteville, in one meeting at the legislature I was attending, this was years ago, said they don't even consider Dalloway students' grade point average. They have to score so high on the ACT or the SAT, whatever they were using, because they suspected grade inflation. And they've had studies done on Dalloway District before. In 2011, a study was printed out that called for security measures in place. Like somebody said, fences, things like that, to protect our students, to protect our teachers. So it's a lot that can be done. And I just wanted to, when you talk about these programs, joint use agreement, those partnerships are valuable in communities. Over in DeWitt, their school has it so that the whole community can come and do exercises around a track field that was put together just for walking. I mean, things that we need in our community that will make us better at socializing with one another, the children as well as the adults. Then you have to consider, everybody wants to say in a committee meeting something about an ACE, an acute childhood experience. Well, we got children around here now, if I don't know what you would call it if you don't call it acute. And this is going to go on in their lives for a long time as they develop as adults. When we can't teach them, and we can't expose them to good things, what can you expect? We have to challenge them to be the best and expect the best from them. But we have to expose them to good things in our community. So at any of the PTO meetings, I would suggest there should be a representative from our police department or our county sheriff's office. Yes, ma'am. I don't understand how you put together a public safety plan at a school district without consulting your law enforcement. That just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. But while you're talking about going to the Board of Education meetings and all, I think you should do more research, more planning. I was going to mention other kinds of grant programs for game and fish that other school districts are taking advantage of. I never hear about anything around here. Nothing. And it sickens me. But I would like to say that I have much faith in the students and the people of Pine Bluff. And while we can say, we can look at test results and say they're not proficient in this, proficient in that, I'm here to tell you that many of our students do well. They do well. Even when they were saying they were given inflated grades. You know, some things are more common sense than book knowledge. And when you expose a child to certain things, that child will develop and have some understanding about what's going on around them. I'm happy to say my son was a 2010 graduate of Dalloway High School. And now he's the deputy director of the Colorado Air and Space Force. Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Flowers. That was some great information you shared with us, and happy to hear about your son doing so well. But that is awesome. But Liz, thank you for coming. You didn't get any questions tonight, but we appreciate you being here. All right, and finally, we want to shout out UAPB champ. I already acknowledged the chancellor, but I see faculty and staff. I don't see Dr. Carr, but thank Dr. Carr for allowing us to be here. So thank you, part of my UAPB family. We love you. Chief Franklin, thank you for being here. It's good to see you. Good to see you. We appreciate you. That's my police chief. That's my police chief. I'm so happy he's in that position. I love this Chief Franklin. All right, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your attendance, and have a good evening.